Well, thank you very much to all for being here with us. I want particularly to thank Renan Proveda, who is the World Bank representative in Mexico, and we had the opportunity to talk a year ago. And our idea was well received, the idea of the food banks in Mexico, and he was very enthusiastic, and thanks to Rosario, World Bank counselor and co-host of this event, Irene Berardo, who gave us great support to this workshop. I want to thank you very much, Irene, Renan. I would also like to thank my Mexican colleagues who are here, and particularly Dr. Aguilar for the study presented yesterday. It was an excellent presentation. And our friends in the government were here with us. Omar Garfias, the representative, the technical secretary of the National Crusade Against Hunger, the main social program of the government. And I wanted him to be here with us. And Senator Hilda Vargas is here with us, although today she had to go elsewhere. Hilda Flores Vargas. She is a senator of the Republic, and much of the work that we are wanting to implement with the Mexican government is to raise awareness on what we do at food banks. Carlos Franco, thanks for being here also. Juan Carlos Camargo is also here, the representative of Walmart for Latin America. And he addresses sustainability issues, and we are very happy that the Mexican Commission has expanded here at this event. And I also thank all my panelist colleagues. We are very good friends, and the presentation is to share the experience of what we have done in Mexico in these 21 years that along which we have been trying to do what is the main objective of this meeting. That's to say, reduce food waste and take it to the people who most need it. I will start with a small video that has a translation into English, also a short 3-minute video.
Bancos de Alimentos de México.
Mexican food banks.
Hoy, 1 de cada 4 mexicanos vive en carencia alimentaria. Y también hoy, 1/3 parte del alimento que se produce en nuestro país se va a la basura. En México hay alimento suficiente para todos y más. Y si pudiera rescatarse tan solo la mitad de lo que ya se produce, tú y yo viviríamos en un país sin hambre. Bancos de Alimentos de México es una asociación civil mexicana sin fines de lucro, dedicada al rescate de alimento para combatir el hambre y mejorar la nutrición de la población vulnerable en nuestro país. Conformados por una red de más de 60 bancos de alimentos distribuidos por todo el país y una oficina de servicio nacional, rescatamos aproximadamente el 2% de todo el alimento que se desperdicia, que representa 120,000 toneladas al año. Y con eso, logramos beneficiar a más de 1.100.000 personas en todo México de forma constante. ¿Cómo lo hacemos? Colaboramos con las principales empresas agrícolas, productoras y comercializadoras a lo largo y ancho del territorio nacional, para rescatar el alimento que no van a vender y que es 100% apto para el consumo humano. Donar no cuesta. De hecho, conviene, pues se reciben beneficios fiscales, se reducen costos de inventarios o de destrucción y se eliminan importantes fuentes de contaminación. Más de 4,000 empresas de todo el país se suman a nuestro esfuerzo y nos donan alimento. Dependiendo de la comunidad, entregamos alimento de manera quincenal o semanal, siempre procurando que sea balanceado con el producto disponible. frutas, verduras, granos, abarrotes, cereal, proteína, etc. Para entregar este alimento hacemos estudios socioeconómicos que nos permitan constatar que quien lo solicita realmente lo necesita, y de esa forma podemos atender a los grupos más vulnerables. Y no regalamos el alimento. Se solicita a nuestros beneficiarios una cuota de recuperación que, de acuerdo a la ley, nunca excederá el 10% de su valor comercial. Esto le da valor a lo donado y fortalece el sentido de dignidad de cada persona atendida. Esa cuota de recuperación es la que hace posible que los bancos sean autosostenibles. La Oficina de Servicio Nacional representa a todos estos bancos de alimentos afiliados y gestiona políticas en lo federal. Establece convenios nacionales de donación, realiza intercambios entre los bancos, desarrolla proyectos especiales, difunde la labor de la red, asesora y capacita la operación, entre muchas otras cosas. Transparencia. Actitud de servicio. Respeto. Integridad. Dignidad. Amor por lo que hacemos. Trabajando desde 1995, hoy conformamos una de las asociaciones civiles más importantes del país. Somos la única red de bancos de alimentos en México y la segunda más grande del mundo. Si 1 de cada 4 mexicanos vive en carencia alimentaria, entonces 3 de cada 4 podemos ayudar, porque en México hay alimento suficiente para todos. Bancos de Alimentos de México.
Thank you.
Bueno, es un overview, como dicen,
This is just an overview of all we do.
no sé si está. Pues digo, es un compartir esta gráfica. Creo que ya no tenemos mucho que decir.
I don't think that we have much more to add after all that was said yesterday. This is a reality, and we need to continue moving forward in improving our work.
Las pérdidas y
Losses and wastages
desde el campo hasta el último consumidor.
take place in the field and in the last consumer and moving through supply chains and industries.
Hambre y la pobreza, pues también es una
But poverty and hunger are also
nos golpea
a reality
y que tenemos que de alguna manera
that stares us in the face, and we have to
avanzar en
cooperate in the effort
también ya se ha hablado bastante.
in reducing poverty, and a lot has been said also about this.
También ampliamente el tema de
We also mentioned a lot
alimentos que no cumplen con los estándares de
the
calidad.
topic of weird food or food that don't meet quality standards, but we need to do something about it, and we are doing so. Many companies have already taken the initiative. We can see this in many of the presentations here, and when we need to change behaviors also. That was the
El panel anterior
part mentioned by the previous panel.
general
We need to change an overall pattern of behavior to be able to take the most advantage of food.
ahorita
We just saw
somos partícipes
this. We
red global de bancos de alimentos.
are part of the Global Food Banks Network together with Argentina, the US, and Canada.
Trabajamos alianzas con todos,
And we work in partnership with all
pueden ayudar de diferentes
companies that can provide us with different help. And we recently also started a relationship with the government, with different state secretariats according to their own area of work, and that has enhanced a model that we already had,
nosotros al gobierno
whereby we had approached the government in our first 18 years of existence of the network.
otras oportunidades que
We had not approached the government in the first 18 years of existence, and now we have approached the government, and this has opened up many areas. These are the facts. What we had just seen in the video. We have 52 million people in poverty in Mexico, and 28 million of those live without food access or in food insecurity, which is the new concept defined by the government to determine who are the people who need assistance. And 7.1 million people live in Mexico in extreme poverty, according to international standards and according also to a definition that the Mexican government has created recently and which has to do with having more than 3 poverty shortages that as sign of poverty. And out of the 20 million tons wasted annually, yearly in Mexico, as Eugenio said yesterday, out of those 20 million, with only 3 million tons of food which is wasted, we could feed all those poor people in Mexico, and extremely poor in Mexico. And as you saw in the video, we also have a presence all over the country in Mexico. But our main challenge is, first of all, obviously, is the institutional strengthening. We have been working recently on institutional strengthening. One of the main points is that at the domestic level, food banks were not known. They were just known at the local level. And that created problems for us. And we mentioned this yesterday with our colleague from Argentina, Nadia. And the topic that each institution created over time grew over time, over these 20 years of food banks' existence. Each of those banks has its own brand name, and our national office in Guadalajara, we only had a local voice. We didn't have a national voice. So we undertook a brand unification strategy because no one knew us really. No one knew what the association was about. Since we were not located in the center where most decisions are taken in Mexico, that is to say Mexico City, we had to travel constantly to Mexico City because we were based in Guadalajara. We were not well known. So we implemented a strategy, and now we all have a single brand image, which was very difficult to implement because it's very difficult when an institution starts with a brand, a way, a mindset, a way to do things, and it's very difficult to consolidate this at a national level. And we are in that process, and this has generated very significant opportunities to have better unified communications and to establish partnerships with national media chains, which we had nothing of that when we didn't have a unified brand. And we also needed to have a unified message. I mean, we didn't want to have a food bank to talk about one program and another bank with about another program with different messages, because this didn't allow us to focus our communications. And this also allows us to have a long-term vision. Going back to our partnerships with the national government in Mexico, we had only been working with the executive branch, with the secretariats, but we realized that each change of administration, when it came to some progress and actions or participations in some program that we have made, then the administration changed and the new administration drew back all that had been done. So we decided to approach the legislative branch in Mexico to implement long-term actions through specific programs. And so one of the representatives was going to come at the event, but he canceled his trip at the last minute. But here we have Madam Senator and her representative, and we wanted the national agenda to include the role of food banks. This is very important because otherwise the existing private sector culture is not as in many other countries where there's a much more significant donation of resources. In Mexico, we don't have those corporate donors, such as it's a problem that is similar to the rest of Latin America. But some corporations really don't participate in donating, neither financially nor of food. And we have worked with very limited sets of resources. In the last 3 years of our relationship with the government, through the National Crusade Against Hunger, one of the things that we needed to strengthen most was infrastructure. We didn't have warehouses, we didn't have cold rooms in sufficient numbers to take advantage of the food opportunities generated in agricultural fields and industries. And even though we need some 80 facilities in the country, we needed really addressing this with the government. And in 2014, we were able to receive $10 million to establish these adequate facilities. And now we are implementing other 5 additional facilities that are being built in very important cities of Mexico, which so far lacked that infrastructure. And this is very necessary to continue making progress. So over these 3 years, we have obtained about $15 million. These are some of the new facilities that have been built. Most of them are already in operation. Now, fruit and vegetables. This area presents one of the most significant opportunities in Mexico, which is a very diversified country with different climates, producing different produce all over the year. We are the 8th largest exporting country of fruit and vegetables in the world. So this presents a big opportunity. And if we link this to the priorities of better nutrition and feeding, this is what the population, the poor population, needs this most. And we cover the entire country, so we can produce all over the year round. And this is why we have focused to be able to really produce food. And that's why we insist in working with the federal government to be able to continue to complete these 80 needed facilities. Some were generated with private resources, and the new facilities that have been built. We still need an additional 30 installations, 30 facilities established where food can be produced and can be taken to the needy. We also implemented a program precisely to be able to take this food from the field. Producers don't pick up these food products because the prices have really fallen in markets, so because they are not good quality remainders. And so this program was implemented through the temporary employment program and has given very good results, because then the producer, instead of unemploying the daily workers, they continue to employ them to pick up these products, and with the resources received from the government, we can pay the day wage laborers and to channel food to the food banks. More photos and images, and This is what we gathered last year, 11,000 tons. We gave the opportunity to 2,000 workers. We served 471,000 people who benefited from this program in the country. And this program originated at the government level. We addressed this with the private initiative, and the private sector was very interested, especially when it came to companies who want to generate better nutrition. And they felt that this was a very important program, so we repeated this program with the private sector, and we received resources to recover another 9,000 tons of food. These are the banks that participated in these regions. We benefited 153,000 families. This was what focused the program, which was focused more in tons than in the number of day workers. The social justification of the government was to support day laborers so that they would not lose their income and work.
Just a little bit of background of the legislation submitted in Mexico in 2000 and implementing an act, the Good Samaritan Law or Act, which has just been mentioned by our colleague from USDA. We also look into the fact that we can have some time frame in order to place this product, requiring companies that to make a donation valid, it would have to be done 5 days before a product would expire, and that way they would get the tax break. So this has been an incentive that is within an act now. It's been enacted, and what we do is 5% over cost has not been sufficient to become a trigger for a larger donation. So this year, what we are attempting to do is to increase it to 15% and did not receive support of legislators. But that does not prevent us from going in next year to insist and increase this percentage. Tax incentive. So the whole program that Feeding America has achieved, tomorrow we will meet with a representative here in Washington, and we're daily negotiating with Congress for all of the initiatives in order to attain a greater incentive, not only to agriculture production, but in the entire value chain, in industry, self-service, so that corporations become aware of this and have an incentive. And different from the law in France, which is a punishable law, is to punish corporations. We do not see that possibility for us. This is the annual report, one-page report, and here you have the main data on tons and public served, and also national disasters. We participate actively in order to support every year in Mexico. We know that they're having hurricanes and other natural disasters, so we have made progress. What are our main challenges? That is to improve the food bank models, increase and have establishments set forth strategically in all points of the nation, and to benefit from those donations. Also, logistic funds. This is a bottleneck in Mexico. Mexico is very big, and if we produce tomatoes in Culiacán, it's no news for people in Culiacán that we give them tomato, it will be very attractive in Cancun or in Monterrey or in Tijuana. And same happens with all other produce, banana, pineapple, melons. Those costs then, in order to transport to all other places, is not covered by the financial or funding system that is established that allow us to charge 10% to those who benefit. If it is over that, we can no longer take it and transport it to the population that needs the product. So in the U.S., they have the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and there are several set-asides there. And the food banks and assistance institutions receive funds in order to support it. It is obvious that to have a more modern technology lies in that one of the things we brought in is to develop a model to forecast harvests. There are producer data banks for the government and others in order to record the amounts of hectares that will be planted when and where in each product fulfills a cycle, and we know when it will be harvested. So we see them, they go from 15 to 60% of waste. That would enable food banks, without having a grid structure, to forecast this pattern and see where there will be less. And just to cut, we need to influence public policies to have better programs, to focus more in what is required in order to make progress. Also, we need to establish more visibility and also to promote this cause of hunger. Many do not have no awareness, and we need to increase it and to be more inclusive so that the population participates all along. The problem is quite big. And last, highlight the financial models. And we spoke a great deal with Dr. Cuomo. We need to go from an exclusive model of donations to a productive one to generate income, and so that social corporations give jobs to the poor and will in turn allow us to generate income, such as those done by Dr. Morris, in order to increase our infrastructure, logistics, and needs that we may have. So I think that I can now conclude our presentation. We do not forget who we work with, and thank you so much for paying attention to me.